Thank you, Your Worship. Joining me is James Dennis of Sun Country Highway. I've invited him to be available for answering questions, although I'm here to present my delegation on behalf of myself. I felt the EV Chargers report did not make a good conclusion based on the facts presented in the same report. As the world adapts to support EVs, Regina community facilities without chargers will stick out like a sore thumb. Instead of saving $26,000 on installs now, the city will in a few years pay the cost of the installs plus the cost of the chargers and signage. It's frankly a miracle that there are 5 electric vehicles in the city already, given the total lack of government support for them at every governance level. The city's acting director of planning said, in the Leader Post, we're just questioning whether or not there's enough market demand. Well, the 5 cars in Regina aren't the only vehicles to consider. There are all the tourists who won't stop at our libraries and community rec centers. There's everyone waiting to buy an EV. Once the government signals, they'll be supported. There's a private company offering thousands of dollars of free equipment and signage to help the city reduce its carbon footprint. It's pretty clear there's enough market demand, and even if there wasn't, that means the report's estimate for how much the city would pay in electricity costs is not reasonable. The private company and market can't just buy a spot at City Hall Parkade or elsewhere. They need the support of council. Here the market is trying to solve the old problem, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? And if the city rejects free eggs, there will never be many chickens here. For additional consideration, the 3 locations chosen in the report don't have to be the last word. SaskPower had been planning to install EV chargers during their now cancelled headquarter upgrades on Victoria. Partner with SaskPower and put a charger into their parking lot behind their tower on Victoria Avenue, or have them pay for the power. Free for public EV use when SaskPower isn't making use of it with their electric vehicles. Get SaskPower to pay for the electricity, or have them install a second charger beside the Sun Country Highway charger and save on install costs so it isn't $26,000 overall. If meter revenue is coveted, install the charger where there isn't a meter. I didn't see that idea suggested in the report as an alternative. And if coal electricity is the concern, as was suggested in the CBC today, the source of our electricity, realize that solar power can be added soon after, and the electricity provided to these vehicles will be as green as possible, something gasoline vehicles can't easily be converted to make use of. If the expense is the concern, save $26,000 to over $1 million every year by not giving away so much free parking to city employees and fellow councillors. And here's some questions I thought that you might have about EVs. Are they non-polluting? Well, yes, there's emissions still related to its manufacture and transport of every vehicle and charging on the SaskPower grid, but it's many times more efficient than producing gas, refining it, and then burning it in a private gasoline car. The city should have electric vehicles, or at least plug-in hybrids, to patrol for parking violations instead of cruising the streets with gas vehicles. EVs work fine in the winter here in Regina. I've been in 2 EVs. James has given me 2 tours in different electric vehicles in Regina in cold months. And this is just a cheap, easy way to replace aging gasoline car infrastructure that we know we're going to have to replace. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions in delegation? Any questions? Councilor Donald?
Thanks. What if I could direct my questions to Mr. Dennis?
You can.
Thank you. Let's start with the basic question. So why are you presenting this option to us?
Because we're trying to help boost ecotourism and help people travel at 0 tailpipe emissions across Canada, helping boost the city and local locations to help embrace ecotourism from people coming from other places.
Thank you. So if I was to ask you a little bit about, say, Manitoba, Winnipeg, or Calgary, can you give me an idea how many vehicles may come from some area like that, which I'm guessing is about the limit as to how they can go?
No, actually not really. Right now, Sun Country Highway, we have a race every year that goes coast to coast called the E-Mazing Race. And right now, what's limiting us is Saskatchewan, how many people can pass through it. So we're needing more infrastructure here. The amount that it costs to charge my car, which is the fastest charge rate, is less than $2 an hour. So if you think of any advertising you have done, where could you do it for less than $2 an hour and only when it's being used, and let alone advertising on the Tesla map and on the Sun Country map 24/7, 365 days.
Okay. So basic question, how far can a car travel, these newer, later models? How far do they-
There again, it all depends on the car. So the Tesla, 430 kilometers on less than $6 of power. The Nissan Leaf, you're getting about 200 kilometers for less than $2 of power.
Okay, so in order to get through Saskatchewan, there has to be more than just Regina.
And there is. We have the Trans-Canada Highway coast to coast. We drove in our Tesla Roadster a little over 3 years ago in the fastest, sexiest car out there. We drove it across Canada in the dead of winter, proving that it could be done and that these cars could do it, shattering all barriers on the electric vehicle.
Thank you. So obviously Tesla is kind of up there in terms of what's available, but I keep hearing that there are other manufacturers who are talking about introducing these types of cars, whether it's GM or whoever. So to your knowledge, are any of those available for sale in Regina right now?
Yes, the Nissan Leaf, it's not in Regina, but PA is where they bring them in, and right now there's 3 Nissan Leafs in Regina.
Okay. So it is possible for me to purchase one in Regina?
From PA, yes.
Okay, I got you. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Donald. Other questions? Councillor Murray?
Thanks very much, gentlemen. Appreciate coming forward and taking some questions. Tell me about locations around Saskatchewan right now. You said number 1 highway, but what happens if I want to go to Fort Capel? That's off number 1 highway. Is there a place there?
Yes, Fort Capel has just put in their chargers. They just got commissioned about 2 weeks ago. So a small community like that has embraced bringing in electric vehicles to their community, because when you're driving an electric vehicle, where are you going to go? You're going to go to the places that have the infrastructure. So that's how you can draw them there. My dream would be to be able to travel as far as Hudson Bay, to the farther north, to bring people from. We've had people travel all the way from Florida, New Mexico to be part of our race. We need to bring them to our province and our cities to see more of it and spend 3 hours charging their car, bringing tax dollars to our community.
So tell me about more of these different manufacturers. Councillor O'Donnell sort of led into it, but what other vehicles are out there? What's coming in the next year? Because I appreciate we have some today, and there's also plug-in hybrids that are available today, which again, get away from the idea of using gasoline or other fuels to power our vehicles. But how many other manufacturers, what other vehicles are going to be coming online in 2015?
I've got a list that I can provide later too. I just went online and got a list of all sorts of manufacturers producing electric vehicles. The Chevy Spark for $25,000, the Ford Focus Electric for $30,000, a Smart Car for $25,000, a Fiat and Nissan Leaf, Mitsubishi and Kia and Volkswagen. So those are some of the manufacturers producing EVs this year. James, I'm sure, can add more. Not
only that, there is things like the Via Motors trucks that get 100 miles to the gallon charging. So for a municipality to get into vehicles that are an extended range plug-in, to be able to have these facilities donated at this time for your fleet to then be able to travel around getting 100 miles to the gallon would save on costs to the city and to the taxpayers.
Wow. I mean, it seems to me that there's a lot of stuff that wasn't in the report, a lot of material that probably is not there. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would, and I also feel that the cost of the installation is a little bit high. I know in most of the locations we're doing it, if it's within about 25 to 30 feet of the building, they're about $1,200 to install per charger. I've seen them as low as $600 per charger. So unless they're being run to the opposite side and you're having directional boring and all this, there's no way that those costs should be that much. And I'm pretty sure that the city does have electricians on staff, so where does the big number come from is what I wonder, because it should be into their wages.
I can add briefly to that too. I did the math, and on a $25,000 electric vehicle, if 21 are purchased because Regina offers support for them, the province would recoup all $26,000 invested as PST. 21 vehicles would represent 1.2% of all new cars sold in a year at one Regina dealership I talked to.
Wow, so it seems to me that one cusp is a pretty major opportunity for us. What would be an alternative location to what we've referred to in the report? Are there other places, someplace that might be a better fit?
I think the new stadium, that would be a perfect fit. You know, anywhere, somewhere in the downtown area for people to come and see our downtown, part of the Vitalize Regina, I think would be a perfect fit for some funds to come for this. You know, anywhere we can draw these people, well, people, myself included, to these locations. And my vehicles aren't represented in this report because our head office is in Saskatoon. Well, I have 4 electric vehicles in my presence here in Regina myself, so.
Okay, well, that's good. So right now we have a ride share, Your Worship, in our parkade. Would that be a location so people that have access to downtown, they come to City Hall? I appreciate you're not paying parking tickets or fines or whatever, but they're parking in our spot, so they can visit downtown. Would that be a suitable spot for them to go shopping, take in a festival or whatever may be happening?
I believe it would be. I also think another way of looking at revenue would be if you're hooking up 3 chargers, which that's something else the report was misleading on. It said 3 chargers for $26,000. Technically, it's 3 locations with 3 chargers per location for $26,000, which is still an outrageous number. But you know, we really need to look at that in a whole. Sorry, I kind of went off on that, but
no, that's fine. So it's 9 chargers in total.
Right, and you know, thinking of parking, there's also like a handicap stall. You could have a fine, which there's places in the States recouping $27,000 off an EV charging spot because an ICE or a gasoline vehicle has parked there.
ICE.
Internal combustion engine. New acronym.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate the opportunity to answer some questions. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Other questions in delegation? Councilor Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, one thing I didn't see in the reports is that with the number of new manufacturers starting to produce electric vehicles now, I'm just wondering, they must have a strategy on how they want to sort of locate these chargers. Anything that I think I read the other day, BMW was bringing an electric car as well. So I guess in my mind, it's something that I guess maybe I feel more comfortable the private sector should lead the charge. And then with all the car dealerships, it's in their vested interest to sell electric vehicles. That could be a general location. I'm just curious, have you seen or heard from the manufacturers what their sort of strategies are in terms of developing this future kind of vehicle?
Well, just personally, I'm aware of Tesla Motors' effort to put supercharger network around for their Tesla vehicles. I haven't heard much about other companies, but this is a case of a private company, Sun Country Highway, offering materials for the public good, and they can't install it where it would do the most public good without the support of City Council because they can't purchase land on a city parking lot to put in their charger or run the trench and put in the infrastructure without government support. And right now we don't have any support from the provincial government for as far as an incentive to purchase electric vehicles. There's no incentive I'm aware of from the federal government either. So Regina could really lead the way by putting a small amount of money in initially just to send a signal that this infrastructure is going to be supported so that it will expand the opportunity of people trying to buy a car so that they have more options.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Burnett. Other questions? Councilor Young.
Hi, John. It's nice to see you back again. We haven't seen you for a long time.
Thank you.
This, I think, is looking at the future. And sometimes we're a little hesitant of jumping into the future because we need more information. Right now, the recommendation from the report says that we remove it from the list of outstanding items, but I don't see that putting it anywhere where we can look at that in terms of budget in the future and how we might move this forward. So I'm not sure what to do, Your Worship, in order to...
We'll wait until the report itself. We can't debate it with the delegation now. We'll wait till after.
Right. Okay.
Just questions, delegation.
So that's kind of what I'm thinking about doing. Do you how long do you think it's going to be before we hit a critical point with the number of cars?
We're already there. You look at Alberta, They have had over 200 Teslas alone sold into Alberta over the last few months. Tesla has reported another 50 going in next month, and more people buying. Even Regina, since the report in February, there's already been 3 more Teslas delivered, and there's more being ordered. So people are jumping on it, and they want to see it. The only way to do it is to bring the infrastructure. And as a city, to be a pioneer and a forward thinker on that, like Shaunavon, Fort Capel, and a lot of the other smaller communities are doing, I think it's something we have to do now and embrace it while it still is early in its infancy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Flagel.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for coming forward. So right now, if I want to plug my car in, how do I find these places?
There is an app. Sun Country Highway has a navigation app, so you can go around and book your hotel rooms, everything. It's not just for EV drivers. It's a lifestyle. So we're trying to embrace economic, social, and environmentally sustainability.
So if you go to, I don't know, Super 8 on Harbour Landing, do you approach them directly and say, hey, put in a plug-in and we'll make sure that business comes your way, et cetera, et cetera? So if you had 20 of those, the city wouldn't have to do that, right?
Well, from a perspective of a tourist, when I've traveled, I've often stopped at libraries in order to gain information about the place I'm visiting and also plan my next stop on the trip. So to have that availability, I think, would be nice at libraries, for example. Another example, just in anywhere downtown, Regina's downtown is fairly walkable, so if you had it somewhere like at the SAS Power parking lot, it's encouraged generally in the evening that people park there anyway. So that's a good spot to hit the pubs on Scarth and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is, though, too, it sounds like you're seeing it a bit through your eyes, because if I travel somewhere, I'm not going to the library. I'm not going to a certain place. I'm traveling, I'm going to the outskirts of the city. So there is a demographic, I guess, and that's what I'm wondering about. I'm hearing that you're kind of focusing it to a kind of a demographic that might suit your lifestyle a bit, but there's another lifestyle that I don't go to the library when I go traveling. So where do we go and how do we grow this and have the business community, who is going to benefit from that tourist stopping at their hotel or their restaurant? How do you get them involved?
Well, and they are involved. Most of the Best Westerns are jumping on board. The only thing is they want it for people coming to their hotel. So when I go to the Best Western, I stop and eat there. When I go charge at PV Mart, I do my shopping there. And same with coming to a city facility. I'm coming there. If it's on the football stadium, I'm going to go to that football game. If it's on, my children, I have 4 children. They're all in sports. So I go to the hockey so places like that now empowers me to be able to go there, top up my car, and go home with my children.
Okay, better statement. Thank you for clarifying, because I like the idea of doing that. Thanks.
Because if you pull into a city at noon, you're not going to want to go to a hotel and get a room there just because it's noon, and that's where the only charger is.
Perfect.
And many of our libraries have a pool integrated, like Sandra Schmerler, for example.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
We'll now look at the next report, which is charging station.
And 15.2 be removed from the list of outstanding items for council. In other words, this was an item for information. I'm just going to very briefly say what the conclusion of the administrative report was. That was demand for electrical vehicles in Regina and the feasibility of providing charging stations in the city at this time. The report concludes that while these charging stations are options for charging options for electrical vehicles, it's technically feasible, there are significant cost implications that should be weighed against the low numbers of electrical vehicles registered within the province and within the city. So basically, this is a report for information brought to council by the Public Works.
Secretary for the report, please. Councillor Flagel. Debate, discussion on the report.
questions for administration, because I did get through the report and read it with a little bit of angst to find out what was there. But was the position of tourism and ecotourism, was that part of the discussion at the committee? Was that part of it, or was it simply just about serving the current residents of Regina?
Ms. Muller?
Through your worship, there was a discussion within the report about the need for these types of facilities, and they're being provided currently by a couple of hotels and being contemplated by the Northgate. So the conclusion was is because of the low number of cars that are within the city limits at this point in time, it was felt that the market is filling that need at this time.
Okay. There was also reference to Toronto requiring only homes to be prepared for electric vehicle, make them ready for that. Is that something the city of Regina has considered? Is it something we've been talked about? Anything from planning on that? Is that something that's been on our radar?
Ms. Muller?
To your worship, no, this isn't something that is on our radar at this point in time. As we move forward through the zoning bylaw and looking at different policies, is something that we'll consider.
Okay, so it is something that I think we should consider, your worship, but I guess I'm struggling here because with the average time that somebody spends at a restaurant or that they spend shopping, I don't know if that's enough time, but maybe if it's in a better location, and obviously the municipality does have a number of locations that could be there, it seems to me that we need a little bit more on this. The pricing we've been told by the delegation may be a little higher, so were those locations located in a good spot, a spot that's located for ease of access to electricity? Or what were the locations that got us these quotes?
Ms. Muller?
Through your worship, we looked at the criteria and we felt that the leader was willing to do that. So they were based on estimates that we asked from the contractor, and those were the prices. Prices do